Well, let's look at Indian markets. The exception to Asia's market downfall, trading at historic highs as Prime Minister Narendra Modi's BJP party looks to secure a second victory in the country's general election. So the benchmark Bombay Stock Exchange's Sensex index was up by over 2% in early trade, passing the 40,000 mark for the first time ever. The broader SNE Nifty also seeing signs of investor confidence. It crossed 12,000 earlier today, up 2.5%. That's another landmark. But investors coming down from that high, both reversing gains to close at a loss at the end of trade. But stocks have been shoring up support since exit polls on Sunday indicated Mr. Modi was on course for a second term. Bonds also being buoyed by the economic consistency promised under BJP's re-election. Benchmark 10-year bond yields down 2 basis points at 7.24%. It touched 7.19 earlier, its lowest level since April 2018. The Indian rupee gaining. It's also seen recent appreciation since Sunday, but it's now also trading more modestly, priced at 70.02 versus the dollar. 5 years ago, Mr. Modi was elected on a promise to shake up India's economy and boost job growth for millions of young Indians. But as he claims another victory, questions remain over the government's track record and how Mr. Modi can successfully implement new reforms if he is re-elected. So for more on this, we're crossing over to Shumita Deveshwar, Director of India Research at TS Lombard, who joins us via Skype from New Delhi. Shumita, let's start with the good news first. So the OECD projects India's economy to grow at 7.25% this year and then 7.5% in 2020. So question is, what do you think are some of the reforms the Modi government did or is doing that's causing such optimism?
Well, what we're really seeing and in fact hoping for is a revival in India's growth. The on-the-ground indicators, the high-frequency indicators from car and two-wheeler sales to industrial output and the Purchasing Managers Index show a slowdown in recent months. And the Reserve Bank of India, the IMF, the ADB a couple of months ago actually cut India's GDP estimates. So we have to really see what policies the new government undertakes to provide a boost to GDP. As far as reforms are concerned, the Modi government implemented the long-awaited goods and services tax, and it has also made doing business in India easier, as shown by the World Bank rankings. The economy is really now settling in, after the GST as well as the demonetization that had happened prior to that. And with the Modi government likely to, implement some policies early on in its tenure to boost growth, we should see some bump up in growth rates, but I would say not by a whole lot.
But on the flip side of the coin, though, unemployment at a 45-year high, fiscal deficit reaching as high as, 4.5% of GDP, and then a general slowdown across various industries. So what reforms are you hoping to see during Mr. Modi's second term towards, addressing some of these concerns?
So there's a long wish list of possible reforms. The problem really has been that across successive governments, the willingness to reform has been limited. So every government has known what are the basic things to be done, but they just haven't had the political willingness to do it. So now that Modi has a second time majority, whether he will show that demonstrate that willingness, we really have to see. Some of the important reforms are privatization, are bank reforms in banking. The banking sector, the financial sector, has really been struggling over the past few years. But whether they're willing to privatize some of these state-run banks that are inefficient and yet constitute about 70% of India's banking assets. But whatever reforms we see, we'll probably see in the first couple of years of his government. And we'll really have to wait and see whether they are willing to bite the bullet, so to say, and undertake these reforms.
Okay, so, saying that, earlier we were saying Asian markets, are all in the red. However, India markets pushing higher this week, hitting new all-time highs today. What are investors signaling with this reaction?
I think investors are basically relieved that it's a majority government and that there will be some sort of policy continuity instead of uncertainty over forming a coalition government. The opinion polls going into the polls had shown that Modi may not get a majority. So it's some sort of relief that, okay, you know, he's got a mandate, a clear mandate. However, even as we saw today, the markets gave up on their gains, and now with politics out of the way and the initial euphoria of, you know, Modi coming back, the government coming back into power, out of the way, I think that sooner or later or sooner than later, the investors will shift back to looking at the economic fundamentals, and those are looking weak on both the global as well as domestic fronts.
Well, thanks for your analysis. We've been speaking with Shumita Deveshwar, Director of India Research at TS Lombard.